Hello and welcome to Waunakee High School, site of this week's WisconsinPrepZone.com Game of the Week between the DeForest Norskies and the Waunakee Warriors. I'm Rob Hernandez, he's Dennis Semrau, and Dennis, this week I felt it was safe to wear purple. Both teams have purple. Now obviously the big purple is behind us here practicing, the three-time defending state champions, but DeForest wears it, they wear it proud, and they also are a team that isn't afraid to see which of the teams is the better purple team.
Boy, I tell you, Menominee gave Waunakee a great game in the semifinals, but the best team Waunakee probably faced last year was DeForest twice. First game, Zach Elgert caught a touchdown pass late, 99-yard drive. Then they won in the playoffs. Waunakee won 17-7. DeForest gave them everything they could handle.
We look at this year, both teams start out 1-0, big wins last week. Come from behind win for Waunakee at Monona Grove and DeForest shutting out Edgewood last week. Let's talk first about DeForest, a good defensive team. Are they good enough to slow down Waunakee?
Boy, they picked right up where they left off last year, 5 shutouts. And Edgewood's not the team they were last year. Chris Wells graduated. They lost a lot of skill players. But it was a 0-0 game at halftime. And a couple of mistakes that DeForest took advantage of. Waunakee can't afford mistakes. Their pass defense last week was not good. Gave up 2 long touchdowns to start out the game. But, again, they put 45 points up against a very good Monona Grove team.
I wanted to ask you about the adjustments Waunakee made in that come-from-behind win over Monona Grove. What did they do better late in that game? What do you think, from a Waunakee perspective, will carry over to this week in terms of preventing the slow start that they had last week?
Well, I thought their pressure on the pass was pretty good, but they created turnovers. They created a fumble, and one of the defensive backs who got beat came up with an interception late in the game, and they turned over MG twice deep in their territory. Didn't score the first time. The second one kind of got the momentum their way, and then they were able to prevent the big plays in the second half. I'll tell you, those 2 running backs from Monona Grove, James Conner and Evan Olenberg, are something else. They combined for 300 yards receiving, so they're going to be a handful for teams all year. We'll find out if it's those 2 or if it's the pass defense this week, because you have a nice passing combination. Jalad, who started a quarterback last year for DeForest, and Brett Minnick, who was a first-team all-conference receiver. He caught, I believe, over 100 yards in passes last week.
Before we get to some other key games to watch, Dennis, let's talk rivalries. This DeForest-Waunakee rivalry, in my opinion, ranks among the best. I look at the Lodi Poinettes, the city rivalries. La Follette and East play for their cup, and Memorial West play for the clipboard. We talked last week about the Verona Sun Prairie rivalry, but DeForest Waunakee, is that number one by a long shot?
I saw these 2 teams compete 7 times last year. In football twice, in basketball 3 times. It was the playoffs in football, the sectional semifinals in basketball, and the sectional semifinals in baseball twice in that. Every one of those games was great. They had multiple sport athletes, guys that transcended the sports. And the rivalry, I think, starts with football and it carries right through the year. It's a good rivalry. The players really respect each other. Sometimes the fans, as you know, can get a little bit out of hand, or the parents get a little bit upset. But proximity-wise, I don't think you'll find a better one. And then, again, with the respect and the fact that these are 2 of the better teams, not just in the area, but in the state.
Moving on to our other games, another good rivalry, maybe not quite to the level of Waunakee DeForest. Monona Grove, Madison, Edgewood. Dennis, they'll meet Friday afternoon, 4:30 p.m. at Brighton Box Stadium in a key Southern Badger Conference game.
Doubleheader day.
Doubleheader day, as Parker and Middleton will play after that in Big 8 conference play. But as we mentioned, Edgewood lost to DeForest in Week 1. Monona Grove loses to Waunakee in Week 1. Obviously, I think Monona Grove established based on Week 1 results. They're the class of the Southern Badger. What does Edgewood have to do to keep that game close?
Hang on to the football. Don't make the mistakes they made last week, because Monona Grove their big play capacity is huge. Brett Piercy, the quarterback, threw for 5 touchdowns, over 300 yards. They didn't run the ball real well, but against Waunakee, nobody really does. But Marcus Goff, remember that name, middle linebacker, but when he's at fullback, he's a lot to handle.
A couple other big games to look at. Week 1, Dennis, we talked about it in our scoreboard show Friday night. 3 Madison schools win last week. 2 will meet this week, La Follette and West. Right now, it's a big game in the Big 8.
It is, and it's great because the game will be over at Leisure. Alex Brown, the quarterback for West, had a great game. Both teams put a lot of points up on the board, so I don't expect this one to be a 13-14 game. Hopefully it's 30-something to 35-34. It'll be a great game.
One other game to talk about in terms of conference showdowns games. Again, 8-week season. We're already now into conference play after just 1 week of non-conference play, and that'll be in the Northern Rock Valley Conference. where McFarland and Jefferson play. I believe that game's at UW Whitewater on Friday night. Both teams 1-0, but the whole conference this last week, Dennis, won their non-conference games. So top to bottom in the Northern Rock Valley, this game may be big, and it was the game before this season that on paper was going to decide things. However, whoever wins this is going to have a long road ahead of them.
Well, I tell you, I saw Jefferson the last game they played last year against Mount Horeb Barneveld. They picked up right where they left off offensively. They are a handful for teams to handle. McFarland will have a lot to handle there offensively.
Well, we'll have reports from those games, and of course, Dennis will be here with our WisconsinPrepZone.com Game of the Week, tweeting live updates on our WisconsinPrepZone.com live blog Friday night, among many area games in Week 2. For Dennis Semrau, I'm Rob Hernandez. Thanks for watching the Prep Rally. We'll see you at the stadium.